I'm going to start with a couple of announcements. One is that we have WordCamp Los Angeles coming up in September. Who's already gotten their tickets? Good. Almost everybody. If you haven't yet, I think there's like 100 tickets left. Natalie, is that right? Is there like 100 tickets about? Yeah, 101 tickets.
How much is it?
Natalie's at like 40, 45. It's $45. And that's for 3 days. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday is going to be like a business track kind of thing happening.
There's 3 tracks.
Okay.
Beginner, design, and business.
Beginner, design, and business.
All-day workshops.
All-day workshops on Friday.
Yeah.
Saturday is going to be a bunch of speakers, a bunch of knowledgeable people that have done some cool things with WordPress. And then Sunday is committed to what?
Contribution day.
Contribution Day. So, what is Contribution Day?
What is that?
Everyone can come and give back to WordPress.
People that want to give back to WordPress.
You don't have to be a coder.
Ah.
So anyone who's interested in giving back to the community that's doing so much for them, participate on set.
All right, you don't have to be a programmer, but if you're interested in giving back to WordPress in some way, Sunday's the day to be a contributor.
What are the dates?
The dates are September 15th, 16th, 17th? 5th, 6th, and 7th. I almost got every part of that announcement wrong. So what else is happening in WordPress land? There's WordPress meetups happening around LA every month, different parts of Los Angeles. So go on meetup.com and just look up different cities. If you're new to this. Who's new to this community? This is like your first time here. Okay. Checking out like any WordPress event. All of you are brand new? Okay. Anyways, welcome people that are new, and welcome everybody that's been here before. So tonight we're going to do something kind of fun. At least I think this is going to be cool. We're doing something called One Problem, One Solution. One of the things that Greg and I were talking about is oftentimes when we're getting started as being freelancers building websites for other people for money, we're being asked to solve their problems. And we're using WordPress. Well, most likely if you're in this room, you're using WordPress to build these websites. And the client will ask you to do specific things. And a lot of times, it'll be a new challenge. You come to something, the client says, it's a normal website other than this one piece of strange functionality I need the website to do. And for you, the designer developer person, this will be like your first time crossing that bridge. So we thought it'd be cool to kind of talk a little bit about some of those moments in our own businesses and ask some of our friends to do the same thing. We're going to talk about like a time that we had a problem or posed a problem by a client, or something that might be a common problem that we run into regularly with different clients, and then what is a solution to that problem. So, did I miss anything, Greg? Do you want to add anything to that?
So the one thing I would like to add is no matter what we do day in and day out, with WordPress, with web development, with anything that all of us are doing, there's going to be more than one solution, and it can be done in a number of different ways. So nothing's saying our solution is the perfect solution, but it's the way we've solved the problem within the scope of our businesses. So if anybody has comments of ways that they've done things like what we're doing and done it more efficiently, better, we want to hear about that, but not during the course of our talk here. Please let us know that if we're doing something that you have a best practices, that here's the way you do it, we want to know that. But what we're going to show is ways that we've solved problems for us. Does that make sense?
That's it. Yeah, thank you. So, the way we're going to structure it tonight is each person that's going to share their problem, they're going to come up and say, this is the problem, and now here's the solution. In about 10 minutes, and we're going to try our best to keep each one of these within 10 minutes. One, because we want to keep all the presentations moving smoothly and quickly, but secondly, because I think setting that expectation of 10 minutes, it's like, look, this isn't such a daunting task that we can't describe the solution to you in 10 minutes. So that's really the goal of structuring it the way we did. What I'd like to do is maybe have 2 or 3 good questions after each person speaks. They'll answer those. But then what we're going to do is, after everybody's given their presentation at the end of the night, we're going to have each presenter sit at one of the tables around here. And then you can have think about your question as you're listening to them. If it's a more detailed, specific question to your use case, wait until the end of the night, sit at a table with the person that was giving the talk. Otherwise, if it's just a quick question, feel free to ask that really fast question after the presentation is over. Okay, so we're just going to get started. We're going to get right into it. And I'm going to start with my presentation. So, this is going to be 10 minutes to a very simple child theme. In any child theme, there is one file that is absolutely necessary, and that's the style.css file in your child. Of course, you can do a lot more to customize your WordPress website, but I really wanted this to be like an entry level. I mean, we could do like a 45-minute or a longer talk on child theme and get more into the details. But what I wanted this talk to be is a very non-threatening, if you've never made a child theme before, just a really fast way to do the most minimal thing to start to make some design changes and some custom look and feel for a very simple site. Okay, so my problem is I needed to quickly create and modify a theme by creating a child for a low budget website for a small business client. I'll show you here how to create and modify a simple child theme, and I'm going to do this in 10 minutes. Okay, so we're starting at the beginning. This assumes that you know how to install WordPress. You know, you have a server, you've installed WordPress, and you come in and now you see the default themes. I'm going to start with 2012 because it's a very simple one. Most everybody here has seen this in some way, shape, or form. So we're starting at the most simple level. So we've activated 2012. Step 2. I'm creating one page just so that we can see the effects that we're going to create in the child theme and how it affects our page. So I created a home page. In the body, you'll just notice I clicked text, I added an H2 tag around welcome to WordPress, and that's basically what we're going to be modifying. So this is what the page would look like right now, without any sort of design changes to it. Of course, this is a very boring, dry page. We would not want to launch our website looking like everybody else's. If everybody's website looked like this, it would be a very boring internet. So, I'm going to now be working back and forth between two locations. One is going to be the dashboard of your site, so we can see what's happening there. We're going to look at the live site, what's actually happening. Then the other place we're going to be is, I'm just using Coda for this example, but you can use lots of different FTP websites to add files or add a folder, put a file inside of a folder. But for this use case, I'm doing this all very simply because in Coda, we can also open style.css right here. We can start to work in it. And for the sake of time, we're moving very quickly here. Okay, so I log in via my FTP program. In this case, I'm logging in with Coda 2. I go to my HTML folder. I open that. I open the WP content folder. I go into the themes folder, and you'll see right here is 2012. That is my base theme, or the main theme that I'm going to make a child of. And the main file I'm going to focus on for this use case is style.css. When I open style.css, right there, so what I did was I created a new folder in themes called 2012-child. This -child is the important part. Then inside there, I created a new file called it style.css. You just name it style.css. It goes right there in your 2012-child. And now, when I open style.css, it is a blank document. There is nothing in it yet. And that's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to add this small bit of code right here at the top of our style.css file that's in our child theme. When we see the little slash with the star, anything in between there will be commented out. But there is an important line, that template, that last line within those little star things. Template 2012 is important. Yes.
Can you make that a little larger?
Can I zoom in on that? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to post these slides on the site, and you'll be able to see it much larger after the presentation.
Hard to follow you.
I know, and then the other thing I forgot to tell you at the beginning is, I'm going to be moving pretty fast through this to keep it all within 10 minutes. So we're also going to post the video online, so you get the video and the slide presentation together, and then you'll be able to I should have told everybody, I'm going to move so fast through this, you probably won't be able to follow me direction for direction right now. But when you see it on the internet, you'll be able to slowly just kind of stop every few seconds and follow along. So the other important bit of code that you need to keep in mind is this @import URL, and then you have to put inside the parentheses /2012/style.css. What that's telling it to do is, this file is inside the child theme folder labeled style.css. But what we want to do is we want to import the entire CSS file from the parent theme. To do that, that little .. is saying, go out of this folder, go to the root, go to 2012, and then load style.css. So that gets loaded first, but what's going to go on down here, underneath that theme customization start here, everything that goes there is going to override the file that's being loaded. Okay, so the next step, once we've done that, we've created that file and it's sitting in our child theme, we're going to come back. This is me going back to the dashboard now, and you'll notice 2012 is now down here since I just activated my child theme. If you can see the rest of this, it would say child. So that's now been activated. So when we go out and view the live site, you'll see the site still looks the same, so we haven't made any changes. But now we're about to start making changes. To do that, a really simple way to start controlling what you see here by making adjustments in your child theme is to do a right click on whatever thing you want to change on the page, whether it be text, whether it be a background, whether it be the header, and you will scroll down once you right click to inspect element. Most major browsers now have this type of feature. I know Firefox, this one's Google Chrome, Safari. You know, you're going to find, I think even IE now, I don't even use IE, but does IE have something like an inspect element? Yes. They do? Yeah. Okay. So anyways, in this case we're in Chrome for the sake of argument and moving fast through this process. Inspect element. Let's say I wanted to change the background image, which is what we're going to change right now. I right click on the background, inspect element. There it is. This is what's controlling the background right now. It just happens to be a color. But I'm going to add an image. So what I did was, I loaded in my media, I went to media library, added this to the media library. So there's my background image. I copied that path to that image once I uploaded it to the media library, and then I came over here to my child theme and I put body, which is what we're controlling. I put background image, and then I added the image right there. And what you'll see now, once I hit save on that child theme, is now that image has been added to the background. Now, granted, this isn't, we still, looks still kind of boring, but we start adding already a little bit of character just by making one pretty simple change. So background images, whether it be in the background of your site or whether it be somewhere in the middle of the site or on a sidebar or something, you can add background images to different areas of your page to begin to change the visual look of it and make it look unique to either your brand or your client's brand and do something kind of cool and fun. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to right-click on this element right there, which is the home title of the page. You're going to see down here, once we go to inspect element, entry header, entry title, that's what's controlling that home right over there. And so this right here is what I have to use in my child to control that bit of text right there. So in this case, they've already given it a font size in their style.css, but I'm going to override that in my new child theme.css. So you'll notice right here, entry-header, entry-title, and I've got the font size that I want it to be. I have a font family that I wanted to add to it. I make the font weight what I want it to be and the color. I just control it the way I want to control it with the CSS. And now, when we go back to the live site, once we've saved that style.css in our child theme, it's now overriding with the color and the font and the weight of what I want it to do. We're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to right-click on this. We're going to see down here, this is the CSS that's controlling, that's the class that's controlling that text right there. So now what I want to do is, this is what they've already got in theirs. I'm going to override that with mine and my child. So once again, you're going to see right here, that's what I needed. I put font size is what I want it to be. GeoSans Light is the font that I wanted to use. You know, at this point, I guess I'll tell you, I did add an app font face here to add my GeoSans Light font right in that spot. So if you ever wondered how app font face works, this is how you do it. You put that there, and then you put your font here. So now I've got GeoSans Light being used here, and then there's my color. And what you'll see out on the live site is now we start to give our page a little more character. Now granted, this isn't brain busting. I mean, this isn't the most amazing thing, but what's awesome about it is you can start to get a vision for how these pieces can be used when you're doing child theming. Okay, I did it. That's like 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to take like 1 or 2 questions about child theming, like as we're getting started. I know this is like just scratching the surface, but just, yes, go ahead.
So you're working under the HIP system, you're not doing the dashboard.
Well, okay, so in one way, we're putting our HTML in the page. So like we would still have our content there in this particular case. And we're going to control, like, I might add a class in the text file, and then I might use that class that I use there in my child. So in that way, I would still need to, I'd be working in the page content in this use case. But to answer the question, what we want to be doing in our child theme is controlling things across the whole website. Okay, so if you've got something like a page title, you don't want to have to change that on every individual page. You want to just say, I just want to grab that. Or if I have a subheading on the page, I just want to be able to put my H2 around just the subheading, and then it always gets treated the same way from one place in my child theme. So one class controls that every time. One more question? Yes?
It seems like you're taking the class name from the real style sheet, copying it in so it's the same thing, and then it gets overridden with the new content.
That is what I'm doing in this case too. So the question was, we're using what we're already given in the original theme, and I'm just overriding with my own style something that's already given. In this case, yes, that's the case. But you can also do like a div class equals, and then just create your own class name and put that around things in the text too. I just didn't want to go that far. This is just like the fastest way of just getting started. So any more detailed questions beyond that, feel free to, hit me up at the end of the evening. I'll be at one of these tables around here.
Okay, so right now I want to bring up our second presenter, which is going to be Greg Medor.
Okay. Who here's heard what a sprite is? All right. We got some either video gamers or way back in the day, sprites were all the rage, and they still are in gaming. We're going to talk about sprites for the web. I've got a case study here where I work with a design company in Glendale, and a lot of times they feed me these great designs that make a lot of sense, but there is nothing that's pre-built to do some of this stuff. So a lot of times I have to look at what they're feeding me and say, okay, yeah, that's doable. We just have to figure out how to do it. So this is one situation where we just finished up the Hoffy site, Hoffy Hot Dogs. You guys might be familiar with Hoffy. The designers handed me this, where they wanted to have this collection of little tiny images kind of act as metadata for the products that are going to be listed on their product page. So I looked at this and I said, okay, well this is clearly a list of things, but I wanted to do this in a way that we could scale it for both high-resolution browsers as well as standard desktop browsers. And I knew we had to move it around in different places because it shows up in different places on the site. So I had to have it be modular enough that I can move it easily, but still structured in a way that I didn't have to go in there and make changes to every image and every placement of image if they wanted one of these to change for one reason or another. So my problem was, how do we easily load a collection of small images? This isn't a way to load your slider. Don't do that. Okay, this is a way to have things like rollover buttons or elements of the page that you need to load a lot of small images for. Check marks, forward and back buttons, those types of things. And rather than having all those images be individual server calls, what we do is we put them all into a single image, and then we basically take that single image and we grab whatever part of that image we need. So this has a lot of good benefits. I find it a lot easier to manage these small images as a single image. If something needs to be changed, we load up that image, we make the change, save it out, and we're good to go. As long as nobody says we need to make these things 3 times the size, which most of the time for these smaller images, they're fairly static elements. If the image needs to change, it's simple to do so, but they're not going to restructure the page over something like this. I find that the page loads a lot faster. If you can do this to a lot of small images, you're not calling to the server every single time you need to load one of these images. You're loading a single image, and that just sits in your cache, and you basically say, okay, for this element of the page, I want to see this part, for this element of the page, I want to see this part, etc. And I've actually used this technique to preload images. Even if there's an image that's not on the current page, if I load this one image and I have another part of the page somewhere else that you need that image for, it's already in our cache, it's already loaded, we just go right ahead. And then the big thing I want to talk about tonight, which we'll get to in a little bit, is the retina optimization, making this so that you can scale it, so that when you show it on a mobile phone, it scales nicely, and you don't have to go through some of the tutorials that are out there that do the same sort of thing. They show you how you can change the image placement when you scale it up. This you don't have to do that. You set your image placement in the standard browser, you double the image size, and it takes care of it. So there's 3 parts to this. The first part is the images. One of the things I really want to encourage most of you being designers, some of you being developers, when you're designing a site, if say your canvas for your site is 1170 wide, develop at 2340. Okay, so that when your images need to scale up, you already have those assets developed. You don't have to go back and redo artwork, repurchase stock images, have to deal with all that type of stuff. Everything's already pre-done for you and it's ready to go. All you're doing is scaling everything down and optimizing it for whatever site you're developing. So whoever's doing the designing, whether that's you or it's another design house, just make sure you talk to your designers up front so that you're planning on the elements at least that need to be twice the resolution. Okay? A lot of the themes that you can buy out there that are already mobile optimized take a lot of this into account already. But when you're adding something like this, you have to think about it in advance. So the second part of this, oh, let me take a step back here, just make sure I covered something. This was actually our two sets of images for this. One was 32 by 192, 64 by 384. It has to be exactly double to make this process work. It can't be this image looking like this and then this being 2 rows of 3 with completely different resolutions. It has to be exactly double. Okay? So if you want to start with the double and half it, just make sure that this is even numbers. Okay? If it's odd numbers, you're going to have a half a pixel that you can't take into account, and it's going to, when you're dealing with these types of images, it's accurate to within the line. So you have to make sure that it's exactly double. So the second part of this is the HTML. As I said, it's basically an unordered list. This is the type only, and it's just a basic unordered list structure. The images, this is the way I do it. I go back a few years, so I used to deal with spans all the time, but I just create a span class. I like to be able to adjust the width that the images are sitting in a little bit. But you know, I was talking with somebody before this, there are better ways to do this. This is the way I do it. So I insert the images using a span class. I wrap the whole thing with a div ID so that I can call to that individual module and move it wherever I need it to be and I know what I'm looking for. And then the third part being the CSS. So I'm going to start with the div, the UL specifically with that div, and the spans. So the UL, I specify that we don't have any bullets in this, and I want to make sure that there's no indentation. So I said list style type to none, list style position to inside. And then the key callouts I specify as having an inline block. I want to make sure that those boxes where those images are taking up a space that I identify. If you're using a span class to do this, sometimes the copy will compress your span down and you need to make sure that the span is taking up the entire space. So now looking at the classes themselves, this is where a lot of the magic happens. This is where we're going to specify the actual URL. So similar to what Greg was talking about in the previous talk, we have to specify the background URL, which is that simple image that we were showing earlier today. I said no repeat, and then we have to specify the background size as the actual size of the image. Not the size of the block, but the size of the whole image. And then within each of the individual classes, we change the position as well as the class name so that that box, that view window, if you will, slides down the box as you work with it. Now the only thing that changes is that class name and then the y-axis value. Now this is making the assumption this is a vertical list. If your images are kind of all over the place, then you'll have to change both x and y to move that box wherever you need it to live. And then finally, to set up the retina display, all we do is we take our second or our 2x image, put it in the same path, call to it, and we specify using a media query. We say, oh, by the way, if your pixel aspect ratio is greater than 1.5 and your dots per inch for your screen is 240 or greater, use that 2x image. Okay? Now, there's no need to do any separate positional setup at all. The inline block, the width and the height within the span, the width and the height within the span, and then the background size of the class takes care of all the moving of the boxes and all of the scaling of the image. And then what you're left with, this is the retina version where your images are nice and sharp. And then if you were to do this, if you were just to stick with the original image, I don't know if you can see it back there, but I see a very clear difference here as to the blockiness of the image. It makes a world of difference. It's a small, small detail, but in a modern web with mobile browsers, doing stuff like this just makes the experience that much better. So that's my problem and my solution. What questions can I answer?
Will you post it?
I'm sorry?
Will you post a link to this on the...
Yeah, everything that we're doing tonight is going to be posted on the Meetup group. It may take me a couple of days to do the video editing and such, but all the slides will be posted, and we'll make sure everybody gets a copy so that they can see what we're doing. Second question. Nothing? All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we are now going to bring up Ashley and Eris from Team A Design. Okay, just Eris.
Robert?
Yeah. So yeah, what I'm going to cover is Instagram galleries. Occasionally, there's lots of plugins out there that exist to do Instagram galleries. The issue that you can run into is that they are often very specific in the layout, which can be a real pain when you have something where you've gone through and made a site that's really specific in terms of how the photos need to be up. So I'll just walk you through this site. This is a photographer site. The biggest part of this website is the fact that it is all photos and has this very specific new grid that they are in love with and think is the best thing since sliced bread. They also wanted to have an Instagram gallery. It's really important for them right now. So we needed to have something that could do a very customized layout. It doesn't necessarily feel like we're just using an out-of-the-box solution. So what we end up with here is something that pulls all of his Instagram photos in, and it shows them in the exact same way that everything else on this website works, which is obviously really helpful when you're trying to present work to agencies and clients and you want it to feel like you're a bunch of grown-ups. So the tool that I'm going to talk about is called InstaFeed. And what this is just a JavaScript library. It doesn't require jQuery or anything else. And it will go through, it does authentication for you, and will pull in, and this guy's doing it right here at the top, all of these images directly from the Instagram feed, okay? So, the basic steps of this, and there, again, there's lots of different ways to do this in WordPress. The basic steps are that you're going to go through and download the code. Very straightforward. Just follow this purple download button. You'll then put it into your theme folder. A lot of what Greg was just talking about with you have your themes folder, you have the theme. Generally, any themes you're buying will come with some sort of JavaScript and have either a JS folder or a scripts folder. Put it in there. And then upload it to your server if you need to. If you're developing locally, you don't need to. And then you're going to use this wonderful function there called WP Enqueue script. Okay, and this is a really, really useful way to do things. This allows you to quickly add things to your theme. That WP, it's right here. I'll look at it nice and big. WP Enqueue script. This is how everything in your themes, if you're adding new stuff, should be coming into your themes. You put this in your functions.php file. And what you're doing with this is you're saying, hey, WordPress, I want to include this style sheet, or for instance, this script name. In this case, we would say InstaFeed. That just tells them what the name is. And you say where it is. The template directory. Here's your folder that we talked about, JS or scripts, and then here's your actual file name. These other elements are optional. I really encourage you to go read on the codex what this does. But basically this just says, does this depend on anything else? If this were a jQuery based thing, you need to say jQuery here, what version it is, whether to load it in the footer or not. What this does, and what's really powerful about this, is that if for some reason you bought a theme that already has InstaFeed in it, and you name this InstaFeed and they're already calling it on the page, you won't now call it twice and cause yourself a problem where suddenly your JavaScript doesn't work and you can never figure it out and it makes you really angry. This will get around those sorts of issues. So this is the way that WordPress wants you to do it. It allows also for things like, if you don't want this to be called on every single page, which is what's happening here, you can do a little bit of PHP and say, if this is home, or is front page, or is single, any of the standard conditional statements you've probably seen in WordPress, you can put it around here and that will only load on those pages specifically. So it's a really nice way to keep things clean and effective. Okay, so let's see some of this. Let's see, these are some other, the other issue with many of the existing WordPress Instagram plugins is that they are based in PHP, which is awesome. That's what everything in WordPress is written in. The issue with PHP is if you're using caching, as you probably should be, which means that there's an HTML file created for your site, it makes it run a little faster. If you're using PHP, that will inevitably be cached. Part of what people like about Instagram is it's a real-time feed. It's something that they're updating all the time. You will get complaints from people when they say, well, I just posted all these cool pictures. It's an hour later and they're not on my site. Why is this happening? You're ruining my life. The PHP is caching. You can't do anything about that. You have no control over that. And caching is better than no caching, so by using something that's JavaScript-based, you avoid some of those issues. So yeah, as I mentioned, there's a number of good Instagram plugins. I like Simply Instagram, I like Enjoy Instagram, Instagram Image Gallery. All of these have very specific ways they lay out. They also prefer to be only used as widgets, which is great for most sites if you just want to put some photos in your sidebar or the footer, things like that. But if you need to get a little bit more control, I think this is a good method to go. You could write your own, why not? Because the Instagram API is super difficult, which it's weirdly difficult. You need to authenticate and generate multiple tokens. Some of you might not even know what tokens are, and that's a good intro to how difficult this is. Just to load your user feed. Instead of like having something like most APIs where you could just go and pull, hey, I want to see all the videos for Eris. Can I go look at that YouTube? They'll give you those without any authentication. Instagram does not do that. They want to make sure that you have correct permission to get access to those things. So you go to instafeedjs.com, written by the young and lovely Steve Shepard. He's so much younger than I thought. It was disturbing. InstaFeed.js is a dead simple way to add Instagram photos to your website. No jQuery required, just plain old JavaScript. It's not joking. So, as we talked about, we download the code, we queue it in your theme. If you want to use it for a single user, which most of you will, so for instance, if it's a company's theme, that would be a single user. If you don't want to do that, if you want to use like, go search for a tag, or go search for a location, go search for, I don't know, a group, whatever, that requires a different kind of authentication. It's actually a little bit easier than what we're talking about, but I think this is actually the more common use case. You initialize it on the page, and you want a template however you like. And this is the actual strength of InstaFeed, is the amount of templating you can do. So we already covered how to download things. We talked about queuing, and this will go a little bit more specifically. So I made a page template called Page Instagram. And in my functions file, as we were talking about in queuing, right? I'm saying if it is the page template, pageinstagram.php, bring this in. Bring an InstaFeed. Here's where it is in my theme. We put it in this infused scripts action, and WordPress takes care of the rest. It shows up on the right page, and only that page. It won't confuse anything else. Now, if that is too baffling, because I saw some of you glazing over on the concept of the whole queuing thing, and that's fine. It is a slightly advanced technique. It's what you should be doing. It's okay if that's like tomorrow's job. You can also just go in your header PHP, and just like on a normal HTML website, you can add it in the head and just do exactly this. You still have to put it on your server and put it in the right path. You can just say, hey, it's some JavaScript. Please put this in here. I don't care if it loads on every page. That's fine. So you need to get your user token. And it's actually your user ID and your access token. And this can be actually a little bit difficult because another thing that Instagram does is make you have a callback, and then that callback has to give you the information. It is hours of work, in my opinion. Stephen has made this super simple. You go to InstaFeed. You go down to the bottom, right above where he has a changelog. He has sort of an explanation about how you use the plugin, or how you use the script rather. He says, don't know your user ID or token. Most of you will not. You just click there. What this does is you'll be taken to the Instagram login page. You log in with the account credentials for whatever you're trying to pull. So you just need to know your login information. And then you'll be shot back to this page after you give access to InstaFeed. And up at the top, in a nice big bright green div, he gives you this information. And that's it. Now you could like use this out of the box. It's all ready to go. So it's a really huge time saver. So you need to initialize the JavaScript. This might seem a little puzzling. Anytime you've used JavaScript on a page, there are generally two components. There's one where you're calling the script, which is what we already covered with queuing or put it in your head. Then there's also a thing where you need to say, hey, this is interacting with the page on this gallery div, or I need to change these kinds of words, or I need to put a border around this image. And usually there's a little chunk of code that sits at the top or the bottom that calls out a specific element on your page by ID or by class, and that's all that initializes it. It's saying, hey, I want to use that script. You got it in your library, I want to activate it. Okay? So again, on my same page template, page-Instagram, I've got this code, and I just dropped it right into the HTML page. There's a number of ways to do it. This is a very simple one. It's just got the basic script, type text JavaScript, and then it's making a little variable that calls in this thing called InstaFeed, right? And then all we're doing is we're setting a number of different aspects of what InstaFeed is. We're saying, what do we need to target? I have a div with the ID of gallery. So that's all that is just saying, hey, go to gallery. And saying, what resolution do you want these images? There are three resolutions that Instagram gives you back. There's a thumbnail, a low resolution, which is like 258 or something weird. And then a standard resolution is like 632 or something, also a sort of strange number. But you set that. What do I want to get? I want to get a user feed. And I have my user ID, which is not X's, that's just for privacy. And then we have this access to it. These are the two things that I was given by the InstaFeed site. And then we have this template, and then we just say run. And all this code is directly on InstaFeed.js. There's nothing magic about this. This is directly off of his site. So now we can template. So you can write just standard HTML to template, and then he also gives you access to some little variables if you want to change it. Okay? And in fact, he gives you everything in the Instagram API, which is great because that means everything on that feed. Comments, who liked it, what their name was, how many likes it has. All of those things are contained in what you're pulling for this user feed. So you could go really crazy with this. You could do all kinds of fascinating ways to interact with it. So here's the template. Now this looks really complicated. This is only because of the decisions that we had already made with the website. We already were doing some things where we have a set amount of columns that we want our images wrapped in. We were doing a fancy box to open things up larger, as you guys saw. You click that and open a larger image. And we had some specific sort of wrapping that we needed to do. But all this is just straight up out of my template. It's exactly how I want these images to look. The only thing that's a little funny here are these things that are in double brackets. These are the variables that you're getting. So if you just call image, it's going to give you the image at that resolution you already asked for. I got a little fancy because we needed to, and we needed to show things a little larger. So I went in and looked at the Instagram API, and it showed me that if I asked for model images standard resolution URL, this is going to give me the URL to the standard image size. And so that's what I'm linking to in my fancy box so it opens larger. I'll just show you that site real quick so we can refresh your memory on it. So again, on my standard galleries, everything is opening like this, so it's really important you're able to get that information in. So, if I go to Instagram, that's all that's happening. So I'm saying, hey, I want this low resolution image, and I want to link to the standard resolution. I don't want to go back to the site or anything else. It's very straightforward. Again, that looks more complicated only because of decisions I made, not because of anything InstaFeed is trying to get you to do. So that's basically it. You can go through and mess that around however you want to. And then again, this model is what's in the API, so you can see that I can easily get the caption text and put it as the title on that link. So there's a lot of data here. It's all not cached. It's very fast. You can see that's running on a live server right now. So good, versatile way to do it. I hope that was 10 minutes. Anyone got questions? Yeah?
Is there an old HTML command or something that says don't cache this page?
Yeah, you can set do not cache in there, and you can set expiration dates on things.
For the original PHP you were talking about?
PHP is different though. What PHP caching generally does is it goes through and takes that and generates an HTML page out of it. So no matter what you have set in that HTML cache, PHP is the thing that's actually responsible for how long that cache lives and a number of other commands. So they're a little bit incompatible. That can help keep things fresher, but it's never going to get past the fact that PHP is saying the only place to get those files is right there. I don't care how old they set them. Yeah.
Just so I understand this correctly.
Yeah.
The Instagram images are being loaded into the site when they're created? automatically? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, when this goes, well, I don't know what kind of limits Instagram APIs have in terms of how real time it is, but they try and make it very real time. So that when somebody puts up, this goes and says, hey, Instagram, for this user with this access token, what's the content? And then immediately pulls it back and drops it to the page.
So, I mean, is it adding it to the end of the page?
No, this is, well, you can change that order, but what we're looking at here, and the way that it's doing it standard in the APIs, it loads newest image, and then finishes with the oldest image. But
I think it just keeps,
it just keeps going. Yeah, and I set how, this has a sort of standard amount of images that it pulls. We could have gotten more or less, any of those sorts of things, but this is just some of the basic functionality of it. Yeah. Sorry, Greg told me to. I got permission on that.
Yeah, this is more of a comment. Hi, I have a microphone.
Yeah, you do. Look at you.
I just was looking at this and thinking, oh, is there really not a plugin for this already? And there really isn't. But there is a plugin called InstaFeed. I just want to tell everybody, don't be fooled by it. It's not the same thing. It's a plugin with the same name as the JavaScript library, but it has nothing to do with this.
Yeah. That's great advice. So yeah, instafeedjs.com is the only place that you can get this. It's not part of WordPress, it's just its own thing. If you were making an HTML website, you could use this same functionality. And yeah, so there is InstaFeed. InstaFeed WordPress plugin is not what this talk is about. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Eris. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. We're going to keep things moving along. Right now, we're going to bring up our next presenter. His name is Louis Reingold. And he is doing some really cool things with product development in this WordPress space that we all live in. So he volunteered to come and speak a little bit about if you're a person that's like hiring and looking for people to do coding jobs for you, sometimes you may need to reach out via Odesk. So, Louis, I'm going to hand it over to you. You go ahead.
What's up, guys? My name is Louis Reingold. I'm the founder of SoFly. We're a WordPress plugin company. We have a product called WPL Import. That's for importing XML and CSV files to WordPress. So you have a client with a bunch of data in an Excel file, you need to get that into WordPress. That would be what that plugin does. We have another called Know My Rankings. It's a Google search engine rank tracking service so you can see where your keywords are ranking in your dashboard. And basically I've been doing plugins since about 2008. And I started out doing the code myself, did PHP development. And I realized pretty quick that it's not very scalable if you really want to grow, and it's a lot easier to just hire it out on Odesk, have programmers there build your stuff, and you can focus on the business end. So I talked to a lot of guys who've tried to hire on Odesk or Elance or Freelancer.com or something. There was just a post in the OC WordPress group about a guy who tried to do it and had kind of a bad experience. He found someone to build something. It was like a 5-day job, wanted to pay only $200 for 5 days, and then it got drawn out to a whole month. And then of course it didn't work out, and then here he was, cursing Freelancer. And if you just follow a few simple rules, there's a great way to get affordable developers off Odesk that can do really high quality work and save you some money if you don't want to go with a US-based guy that's going to charge you, $100 an hour or more. So basically, I have 5 simple rules for hiring developers on Odesk, because when you post a job there, you're going to get 100 applicants or something. And it can be a little bit overwhelming if you don't know what to look for. You don't know, okay, who's good? I can't interview all 100 of these guys. Maybe I can look at their portfolio. Did the guy apply through an agency? Is it really his work? So, what do you look for? What are the criteria for finding good developers? The first one I've found, and I've been hiring developers off Odesk since probably 2009, 2010. Ukraine and Russia have the best developers by far, absolutely by far. So stick to Ukraine and Russia if you can. There's a huge number of WordPress developers in Ukraine and Russia. Eastern Europe in general is pretty good. India in general, not so good. They're a lot cheaper there, but you're going to find the top developers in Ukraine and Russia are between $30 and $40 an hour. So that's rule number 1, stick to Ukraine and Russia. So that right there, you just can 90% of the applicants. and maybe you'll have 10 left. And now how do you figure out out of these 10 who's good, who's not? So rule number 2, on Odesk you can see everybody's work history. If a contractor has worked for a client, you can see the client, give them a 5-star rating, you can see how many hours he worked for that client, what the hourly rate was, what the feedback was. So look at that and don't hire anybody that doesn't have at least 300 hours of previous experience on Odesk, getting paid upwards of $25 an hour. Now the average rate for good WordPress developers over there is, the top guys are 30 and 40 an hour, I'd say the average is about 20 an hour. So if you get somebody that's been working at 25 with 5-star feedback for 300 hours, it means somebody else at least thinks that this guy is better than the average developer, so at least you got the fact that they're vetting him for you, going for you. And then rule number 3, obviously, look at the work. If you're a developer, you know what good code looks like, you know what good code doesn't look like. If you're not, you probably have a friend right now sitting next to you who is. So just check out what they're doing, make sure they have relevant experience to what you're trying to build to. Look at stuff that's, don't just look at any work, look at stuff that's relevant to what you're trying to build and see if they did a good job. Then another thing to do is avoid agency applications. This gets a lot of people. Basically on Odesk there are 2 types of accounts. There are agency accounts and there are individual contractor accounts. And a lot of times what will happen is, and agencies on Odesk is much like an agency is in the WordPress world. And what will happen is an agency will, let's say an agency hires a guy named Mike, and Mike works for the agency for a year and builds up all this positive feedback and work history, and he's got 300 hours of work at $25 an hour and all that good stuff. And then Mike quits and goes out on his own. And the agency still has control of Mike's Odesk profile. So often what will happen is they'll hire another junior developer and then put that junior developer to work under Mike's profile, and then you think you're hiring some guy with all that experience, but you're not. So you may as well just avoid agency applications in general. And then if you're looking for a long-term employee, I mean, it's good for hiring someone to just make a few simple tweaks to your blog. I've found multiple good long-term full-time employees off of Odesk, so great place to find talent. But if you're looking for somebody long-term, don't hire somebody that's only worked on short-term jobs. Make sure that they've worked for, let's say, somebody else on Odesk for 6 months at a time, only one client, that sort of thing. In that way, you ensure they're reliable. So yeah, just to recap, 5 simple rules for getting good developers off Odesk. Ukraine and Russia only, 300 hours of previous experience at $25 an hour. Look at the work, no agency applications, no generic cover letters, and 5, if you're looking for a long-term employee, make sure that they have work history over the long term. And I think you'll find the top developers there are between 30 and 40 an hour. You're not going to get like a rock star, US-based guys over here that are charging upwards of 100 or better. But they're often more than good enough for building, for building good products, for building client websites too. I think you'd be surprised at the quality you could find if you follow those rules. All right, thank you very much. Questions, right here.
You mentioned Odesk specifically. Do you prefer that over other outsourcing sites?
The question is, I mentioned Odesk specifically, do I prefer that over other outsourcing sites? I did used to prefer Odesk over Elance. Odesk and Elance have merged now, so the talent pool is the same. I've not used freelancer.com, but looking at it, giving it a cursory glance, Odesk tends to be the biggest marketplace for this sort of thing. Additional questions? Right here.
I just want to point out that using your system, you'd never hire Mike.
You mentioned using my system, I never hired Mike. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
The guy who used to work for the agency that did such fine work.
That's a good point, I didn't. But the thing, okay, just to reiterate that point, let's say Mike works for an agency and then quits, the agency will reuse Mike's profile. So of course, if I could go find Mike elsewhere on the internet, that'd be great. But the reason you don't want to go with agency applications because they may be reusing someone's profile who is not the person you're trying to hire.
No, the point I wanted to make was Mike goes off and starts his own business. He doesn't have 300 hours. You won't hire him.
I guess sucks for Mike then. All right, thanks very much, guys.
Okay, so we've got one more speaker, Roy Savan. We're going to bring him up right now. Roy is an excellent programmer and a developer. Okay, I know you just made a post about that too, developer versus programmer.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll let you introduce your problem and your solution.
All right, while I'm loading this up, my problem was I had a client that I had to do some really minor work for. And they had their website built out by someone else who fantastically managed to essentially get rid of all the functionality of what you would use WordPress for. The client could no longer make new pages. The client could no longer really do anything with their site besides update what was there. And it was all because of a plugin. How many of you are familiar with Advanced Custom Fields? All right, Advanced Custom Fields. If you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it because it's a great plugin. It allows you to do a lot of really cool stuff. Managing the back end of your site, so let's say your poster pages on the back end. You can add new fields in, grab that data. It's basically post meta, but then done really, really well. Great plugin. What the previous developer forgot to do when they were developing out their site was think before they started developing. So what I did was created a solution for the client, which we're kind of essentially going to be rebuilding this whole site. But I basically took Advanced Custom Fields and I said, there has to be methodology to this. There has to be a way to like easily create great custom fields, great content, but then make it easily to manage in the future. So you have a client that obviously maybe not knows PHP, code, etc. So you can use Advanced Custom Fields to make their life easier. But somehow this one development company made their client's life way worse. So I'm going to walk through a couple methods that I use when I'm using Advanced Custom Fields. And basically at the end, when you're going to use it again, new client, whatever it may be, just think about these methods and try to figure out which one is the best one that might fit your needs and actually the client needs and what they're going to do in the long run. So method number one is probably the most typical, and this is what the development team did. They made a very, very specific to page and template field group. So those are familiar with Advanced Custom Fields. You make field groups associated to whatever it may be. And in this case, they associated to page templates. Now, if the client wanted to add a new page, it essentially did nothing because all the page templates were so specific to the content that they couldn't then like add a carousel that was already programmed in because it wasn't done properly. And this method is actually really good if you have one page with one set of content. So I'll give you an example, homepage. Usually things on the homepage like the slider, you're not going to use anywhere else on your site. So it's fine to make a field group called homepage, and then all those fields are just for the homepage. Other pages that you might have or templates that you might be reusing. Again, this method does work. It didn't work for the client that I was dealing with. The next one is similar, but it's actually a post type approach. So instead of taking specific pages saying the about page, the home page, you're saying let's just broaden this out a little bit. Let's just say all blog posts need this field group. All events need this field group. And all portfolio items, like on my own website, need this field group. That's how I set mine up. It's a custom post type setup. It's a post type setup, I should say. And so that way, anytime I add a new post into that post type, everything's already there, ready to go. I don't have to specify anything specifically, and it actually works out pretty well for me. I also have a homepage one, or I used to on my old site, so I do mix and match. The last method, which is actually what I'm going to be using for this current client, is actually the content block approach. So essentially what they did was they have content blocks all around their site. Carousel, tab content, things like that. And they're actually reusing them all across their site. But in their Advanced Custom Fields right now, every page has another set of fields that does the same exact thing for the same code. So it's pretty redundant. So what I'm suggesting, which is what I'm going to be building out for them, is actually a content-based, block-based field groups. So hero, image, and slider. On every single page of their website, at the top, they have a hero image or a slider with some text over it. Every single page has it. I could just say, okay, well, let's just assign this to all pages, but some pages, let's say, don't have it, or maybe they don't want to have it on certain pages. So this is a content block. Quote carousel. They have a few pages which have testimonials, quotes, things like that. Again, content block for that, good to go. Widgets, same concept. So there's two methods that I'm actually thinking about approaching how to use these. One is to teach the client how to use advanced custom fields conditional logic. It really isn't that hard. You just say, okay, if the page is equal to shop and the page is equal to contact, then these field groups need to be there. But I had an epiphany actually earlier today, and I said, well, if you have the repeater field, which whoever uses advanced custom fields probably knows about, you could actually create a repeater field which then calls on the content blocks. So you can then allow the user to have a repeater field, which then they can type in, or from a drop-down, select the content block, reorder the content blocks as they wish, and then boom, the content's there. Basically allowing the user to change the layout for any given page at any given moment as they please. Kind of a cool approach. I haven't done this before, but I think it's actually the most modular way of doing it. So I've kind of laid out 3 different approaches. And I think the main thing that you need to take away from this, and this is something that I'm going to be talking a lot about in the future with ACF as it's so widely used, just think about it before you start using it. Because I know that it's really easy to just go, okay, add a field group, assign it to the home page. Add a field group, assign it to the about page. But if you think about it in the long run, 6 months down the line, you want to add a new page. You want to use, let's say, a widget setup that you have on the about page. How hard will it be to then program that in to that new page you want to create? If you had it as a content block, it'd be pretty simple. All you'd have to do is assign that content block to that new page you just created, as opposed to having to go back into the template file, add in the code, and then go about that whole procedure. One other little method that I've also been playing around with, which a lot of people use with their templates, is template partials. People that are really programming themes out there might be familiar with this. This is where you have a chunk of content outside of a page template. I think it's useful, and it could be a good approach, but I think the repeater field might be the way to go. So I'm going to play around with it with this client. I'm going to post how my experience was, and hopefully it goes well.
Right.
That's it. Any questions? No? Awesome.
I got a question. So,
By the way, I love InstaFeed. It's awesome.
great. Can you explain a little bit more about this content block method? Can you show us an example of it? Is that
Yeah.
great?
This is actually the client I'm working on. Let's just go. All right, here's a perfect example. This laptop carousel tab thing, I don't even know what to call it, exists on a couple of their pages. Right now, the way their website's set up, this solutions page is actually a page template which only runs on this page, and then all of this that comes under it, the quote carousel, this thing, that's all built into that template. So if I wanted to pull apart just this laptop thing, I'd have to go into that template, which is what I had to do, pull that code out, make a new template for the new page I had to create, and then put that in there. And then let's say they wanted this, same thing. I'd have to go find that code, make a new template, put it in there, and then once that's all done, I had to go into ACF, create a new field group that duplicated that, and you can't duplicate that easily with ACF. Had to duplicate that, and then assign it to that new page I created. That is the nightmare the developer team that came before me set up. So the client was really stuck. What I'm saying is if this was a field group, and this is a field group, and this is a field group, then you can create a new page, have a repeater field, saying repeat. Okay, I want quote carousel, I want laptop carousel, quote carousel, and this thing, I don't know what to call it. And then it would just display. And then with the repeater fields, you can actually drag and drop orders, so I can actually have order change around as they want to. Kind of similar to some of those plugins now that are drag and drop template layout, but kind of using ACF to do the same thing.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Ooh.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, so right now what we're going to do is the presenters, they're going to be around here, around the room. If you have more detailed questions for any one of them, feel free to ask them one-on-one. There's also some other really advanced, experienced people in WordPress here in the room. So if you have like some question on your own WordPress website, you may be able to connect with one of those people, or just feel free to get to know each other and just get to know people that are here in our Hollywood WordPress community. That's cool too. So if you're a person that is an experienced WordPress user and you wouldn't mind helping others here, will you raise your hand? People that are in the room? Okay, we got a few, Natalie, yes, Suzette, thank you. Okay, great. So, you know, just kind of move around the room, get to know some of those people, talk with some of the speakers that already spoke here tonight. And do you have anything else to add? Okay.
Just preventing you from logging out and using my video.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Bang. So thanks for coming out, everybody. We'll see you next month, or we'll see you. This is going to be something kind of cool. Next month, we're going to do a drawing for 2 tickets to Los Angeles WordCamp. So,
Thank you, Natalie.
yes, thank you, Natalie. The WordCamp, Los Angeles WordCamp gave us 2 free tickets. So come out next month, and you'll have an opportunity to win those. Okay, so see you guys next month, or just continue hanging around here, talk, chill. All right, thanks.